Hey guys, hey, thanks for joining today. Hey, today the new topic I wanted to do was something that it kind of tied in with an earlier video that we had done, about basic narcissism, men who can't love, or is it simply narcissism? But there were a lot of good points in there. But today what I really want to talk about are some things that you will never ever hear or see a narcissist do. Okay, so there's kind of a lot to cover, but without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it, okay? First thing that you will never see a narcissist do is a narcissist will never apologize, okay? They give what are called faux apologies, fake apologies, what I call bullshit apologies. Basically, what an apology is it's an acknowledgement of fault. Okay, healthy people, with a healthy mindset, a healthy mentality, they would truly feel remorse, and they would apologize out of their own volition, out of their own, their own doing, because they truly feel as though they have done something wrong, and so they do want to apologize, and they do want to make amends, and it is freely admitting that wrongdoing because they truly feel like they're wrongdoing, whereas narcissists, will not, because it's strictly their own personal agenda, and a lot of times too, we have to remember, I do want to say this though, that with, apologies, a lot of times, they can be uncomfortable, whether it is something that was hurtful or something that was said or something done, or, sometimes we kind of elevate our voice or scream or yell, beyond a reasonable, means, I guess. And I really hate saying that, but a lot of times I think we all kind of, lose our temper a little bit. Basically the reason for this, why a narcissist can never truly give a genuine apology, is that a narcissist is never at fault. Okay. A narcissist is perfect by God. And if they are perfect, there's no need to apologize for shit. Or at least that's, kind of the mentality. So, kind of like the fake apologies, faux apologies, they will never, you will never hear an admission of an apology from a narcissist, anything along the lines of, oh, I'm sorry I hurt you. Oh, I'm sorry I lied to you. Oh, I'm sorry I cheated on you. No. What you're going to hear is something along the lines of the fake bullshit apology. Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. Oh, I'm sorry you can't handle real life. I'm sorry you're so sensitive. Oh, I'm so sorry you have trust issues. Okay, well, and the list goes on and on, but in actuality, my whole thing about that, I'm sorry you have trust issues. No, motherfucker, that's because I have trust issues because you have honesty issues. But that's another topic. But that's, that's very common, something a narcissist will do. They kind of twist their words, their little, word Jedis. Everyone else, we are all inferior to narcissists. Narcissists are way the fuck up here, and we are way the fuck down here. They are the highest of all positions, and we are just a bunch of fucking peons. Okay, and we have to remember too, as in an earlier video, another reason why they will never issue a genuine apology is because they're never at fault. It's always somebody else's fault. Anytime something goes awry, anytime something happens, there is always, by God, someone else to blame. Surely the narcissist has done no wrong. Okay, and that right there, that kind of constitutes, as well as, is a sense of superiority. Okay, with people, events, situations, achievements. And the reason why I kind of wanted to get into this a little bit too, as well, is because a lot of times we have to remember too that narcissists, their behavior and their mentality, especially with apologies, is they learn how to bullshit apologize, okay, because it's never real, so you'll never see them do it, but to get around things, because narcissists, they have that invalidation, okay, and the way that they become validated is they are not validated themselves as a person, they are validated based off of achievements, okay, based off of accomplishments, based off of things that they have done. Okay, that gives them the validation. So it's sort of kind of like, the game, which is what I'm going to get into. I always kind of, relate it to a game, is that, okay, well, if they can, sort of, fake that bullshit apology and, kind of get around it. Okay, well, they've just won up, they a point for them, kind of thing. And that's bullshit. That's really terrible. But, unfortunately they do. So, it's just a couple common reasons why. Number two, something else that you, that you will never see a narcissist do, is forgive. Okay, a narcissist, they will never forgive. They will never truly forgive. They might say that they do, but they don't. Basically, it's really just an endless battle. To a narcissist, forgiveness cannot happen. Okay, and the reason for that is because everything is a battle. Okay, everything is a threat to them. So, you know, basically it is their need, their survival to, okay, well, you know, the threat must be defeated. No, or otherwise the threat will defeat me. And they're not going to do that. Okay. You know, any wrongdoing, you know, that is done is they perceive to them, by God, the battle is going to wage on, that you have just caused retaliation and revenge. There's always some kind of, you know, vendetta. You know, and this is their mentality, so they're not going to forgive. They will offer that bullshit apology, okay, but it's really just to kind of demonstrate that superiority, that upper hand above others. Well, oh, okay, so what they're going to do is, you know, with that, they'll never, like I said, you know, that truly forgive, but they're going to do something kind of like, they're going to kind of wordplay, you know, and feed off the emotions of others, you know, and they're going to say something like, oh, okay, well, see, of course, I'm not going to apologize. I don't need to apologize. Oh, well, they wouldn't apologize if they weren't in the wrong. See, I told you, I'm perfect. They're the bad guy. See, I told you, you're apologizing. You're the liar. You're the dirty, dirty cheat of the world. You're the wrongdoer. You're the whatever. You know, the list goes on and on. And they always use, and this right here, and the reason for this, you know, it can never be a genuine apology, is that they use this, it's employed as an emotional and a psychological, it's a combative tactic. Okay. And what that is a narcissist, it's kind of like a spider in a web. Okay. And what they're going to do is they're the spider, and they're going to take that web, and they're going to spin it, and they're going to use it to their advantage. So when you apologize, now they're going to take that apology and use it against you. Now they're going to punish you for apologizing. And, you know, and the reason for that is they're going to punish you because a narcissist, the key fundamental concept here, why you will never see a narcissist genuinely forgive, is because a narcissist cannot forgive themselves. Okay? Narcissists don't like themselves as a person. You know, it is an internal battle. It is, you know, and as much as I hate to say it, I do have a big heart, and it is very sad. You know, but, you know, a narcissist too, a lot of this also stems from, as we talked about earlier, you know, narcissists tend to be raised by one or more narcissistic parent. So, you know, that's always something, you know, you got to keep in mind as well. But that's another reason, you know, they can't allow forgiveness because they can never forgive themselves. And so until they kind of get over that mound, you know, and kind of, you know, really even acknowledge, which is what we're going to get into next, you know, that kind of issue, dilemma, you know, responsibility, that sort of thing, they'll never be able to forgive. Okay, so that's just, you'll never see a narcissist forgive, so go ahead and scratch that. Okay, number 3, taking responsibility. You will never see a narcissist take responsibility for jack shit. Okay, a narcissist, taking responsibility, this, by a narcissist, okay, this, responsibility, it must be avoided by a narcissist, okay? And the reason for this is if a narcissist takes responsibility and accountability for anything that they've done, what this does is this exposes them to blame and shame, ridicule, to opening, you know, themselves up as to take accountability and responsibility for their own behaviors and actions, you know, and any blame and criticism, it basically, it would render them with even a higher, even a more elevated sense of that invalidation. They already feel invalidated, okay? You know, and to them, it's kind of like, in the sense, you know, they responsibility to them, and they do this kind of ploy, is that all the world's a stage. Okay, so what typically is going to happen, why they're not going to accept responsibility, is they are, what I like to call, they are not even an art. They are, I don't know how to say it in French, l'artiste, you know, the master of strategic staging and planning and events and circumstances. So by God, they can be the helpless victim of circumstance. You know, surely they are the fallen star. Oh my gosh. You know, they have done no wrong. Certainly they can't be held accountable. See, I told you I didn't do it. Somebody else did it. Oh my gosh. You know, which is also projection of blame, like we had talked about earlier. You know, and just kind of like, they're going with this staging, they are going to blame well, you, or, you know, the event, situation, so on and so forth, they're going to blame you for their behaviors, you know, because there's always somebody else's fault. They're not going to take that accountability and responsibility. So, you know, they're Jedi masters of deceptions, and they're great with words, you know, and I always call them kind of like the verbal, you know, English Yodas, kind of. I just, you know, it's just something I like. But anyhow, you know, they use this basically as a control tactic, and they tend to do this with people that, you know, the others would consider, you know, as close, you know, their circle, their group of friends, you know, in relationships, or even with children. They're word geniuses. They, you know, this also doubles with what we would have discussed earlier, this, you know, superiority. They don't plan, these son of a bitches don't plan, they plot. Okay, and because all the world's a stage, this handsomely crafted stage mount that is built and displayed, okay, purely, strictly just for the narcissist himself, you know, is going to, there's always going to be that back door, that back way out of any accountability or responsibility. So a narcissist will never have to take responsibility, because something is always strategized. It's always plotted. It's always some kind of play or manipulation tactic, or, you know, and really what this kind of comes from is basically, this is just a narcissist. It is harboring feelings of massive invalidation. It is a void. It is mostly emotional, lacking. So they need to feel that, you know, power and that superiority elsewhere. Okay, but they're not going to accept that blame, so they're going to pass it on to someone else. So that's why you'll never see a narcissist, you know, accept blame, responsibility. By God, oh, let's not remember, they're perfect. So, okay, another thing you'll never see a narcissist do, and this is actually extremely important, is self-reflection. You know, self-reflecting their own shadow. Narcissists basically are internal children that have been hurt, traumatized, victimized, and validated. You know, they're in constant search of attempting to fill, you know, this void, you know, this emotional void that, you know, has not been filled. And the reason for this is, you will never find them self-reflecting, is that in order to self-reflect, okay, a narcissist, this would force a narcissist to examine their true self, which would in turn be opening themselves up to exposure. And they're not going to do that. You know, narcissists, they are terrified. They are petrified of their own shadow, which is, you know, their inner demons. That it's exposure to confront who they really are, you know, which shatters their projected images of, you know, who they want others to be. You know, or who they want others to view them as. And this shatters the perfection. This, you know, this perfection does not allow that, you know, the image that a narcissist holds, this perfect image, does not allow room for errors. It doesn't allow room for flaws or imperfections. The self-reflecting, it forces a narcissist to see the good and the bad. And they're not going to do that. Narcissists can't do that. Emotional voids basically force them to battle their own inner demons. Okay, so basically what they do is, it's basically like the narcissist is a damaged inner child, always attempting to overcompensate for anything that has been lacking. Okay, it's really being anything other than who they really are. Okay, it's too much vulnerability. It's kind of like a toddler, you know, they tend to display, you know, emotional outbursts. They tend to have emotional manipulation. You know, it's being passive aggressive. You know, and they might yell or elevate or raise their voice. And this is basically just to kind of throw a tantrum, you know, maybe like a toddler, to blunt the truth. Okay, like I said, you know, they're word Jedis. Vulnerability and exposure, those are the two key elements. You know, so basically a narcissist is never going to self-reflect, because they're never going to attempt to see themselves as anything other than who they really are. Okay, another thing you will never see a narcissist do is express or demonstrate or reveal their true feelings, real feelings. Feelings to a narcissist is kind of like a game. I look at it, you know, kind of like a little chess game. Excuse me. There's always going to be, you know, little charades and imaginary slights, and, you know, playing and condemning and ostracizing the victim, which is called reverse blame and shame. Oh, excuse me. Okay. And basically, because a narcissist, you have to remember, a narcissist, they must be the center of attention. Okay, they must keep that superiority, that feeling of that superiority, that level elevated. Okay, like a narcissist, they are the most fucking fascinating topic, okay, on the face of this planet. Like, it's kind of like, hey, go kiss yourself in the mirror a couple more times, you know what I'm saying? Of course, I think we've all been kind of guilty of that, but maybe just not to that extreme. But anyhow, narcissists, they'll tend to, dominate a room with intellect, or physique, or maybe they'll do something and be a little more passive aggressive, or maybe kind of say something under their breath and be a little more menacing. And the concept, the key concept here is to kind of impose this faux persona onto others. So it's kind of like, if I am out there, if I am aggressive and outspoken and I can belittle and I show more intellect and physique than others, then no one will challenge my superiority, my authority, when in actuality, that's the wrong way of going about it, because they're scared of vulnerability. Okay, so they're not gonna ever reveal their true feelings. They're not, it's kind of like with a self-reflection. They lack self-awareness. They will always hide. I don't even want to say hide. They will always not even suppress. Bury, I think, is a better term. They will always bury their feelings, especially from themselves. And like I said, the exposure, the vulnerability, the survival instinct to dominate, and it's kind of like forge ahead. Feelings of vulnerability, that's a huge threat to them. It leaves them vulnerable. It leaves them open for exposure, which is what we had talked about, initially. And because of this, they lack. The reason, when you think about talking about and discussing and opening up and dealing with real feelings, a narcissist cannot do this, because a narcissist, they lack the ability to demonstrate courage.